Me too.
Yeah. All right, everyone. This is Andrew Goodwin. He grew up in Atlanta playing junior tennis. We're the same year. We didn't really talk to each other in the juniors, but we knew who each other were. And then he played at Southern Miss and then transferred to Alabama. Roll Tide. Did you see I wore my Alabama tennis shirt?
Yeah, I should have worn mine. That was a big mess up on my part.
What the heck?
Yeah, I don't know, but
It's okay.
I don't know.
It's okay. And after he graduated from college, oh, I forgot about the USTA thing. Did an internship with the USTA,
Hmm.
coaching for a summer, and worked at Michigan as a coach, Mississippi State, and Alabama.
Yep.
So you've done it all. You just need to play professionally, and you're all set. You know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. No chance of my playing. I put that to bed really early, so I would not be able to
Me
handle
too.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Oh, and I just remembered. Hey, Keith. I just remembered we were the best Dingles team to ever be at the University of Alabama.
we were. Yeah, anytime that the men's and women's practices met together and we swapped, we were. I think Jenny called us the blue collar team.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
So we were more into it than anybody else, and we prided ourselves on that.
I don't
So
know if we won that much either, but
that doesn't matter. What matters is the traits we picked up and just our mentality we brought every day. That's
that's
what I
right.
love.
I love it. I love it. So I think just to start out, to get a little glimpse of it for my sake as well, what
Yep.
would you say is your tennis story? How did you get started? What does tennis mean for you?
Yeah, I got started pretty young. Before I moved to Atlanta, I just went to a normal tennis camp during the summer. I thought it was fun. And when I moved to Atlanta, we moved to this neighborhood and we lived literally right by the courts. And my mom played on a few Alta and USTA teams. And so I'd just go down. I'd go down every time I saw a match. I'd watch. I'd hit with my mom. And I started taking more and more lessons, got more into it. And that's when I started playing more tournaments, I found out about one of the cool things in Atlanta that I probably took for granted when I was younger is the academies.
Yeah.
And nice question, Riley.
I know.
Yeah,
Why are you afraid
and
of snakes?
I got to grow up at Windward Tennis Academy. I had a great group of coaches there who really instilled I think, the right values upon me. And I had an unbelievable group of friends there that I got to work with every day. And I thought it was the norm. And as I grew up, I started seeing just how much effort they really put in, how much they really invested in me, whether it was my friends or my coaches. And my coaches turned into huge father figures to me and I still talk to them pretty consistently. They're more spread out now. I'm not as in tune with what's going on in the Atlanta Academy business now, but they had massive impacts on me. As soon as when I went to college, I started out at Southern Miss, and midway through, like in my sophomore year, I, I know you said I should have tried to play some professional tennis, but I knew really early on in my college, like, okay, this is it. I'm not doing this. And for those that know me, knew I was I had a lot going on when I was on the court. I worked hard, but I had way too much going on up here to make that for a living. And yeah, and so I wanted to maximize myself. I knew I had 2 more years playing, and I got an opportunity to transfer to Alabama. I didn't think I'd be able to go to a school that great, and I had an awesome time. But from young age, I knew I wanted to coach. I knew I wanted to coach just because what I said before and the impact my coaches had on me, and kind of not necessarily teaching me how to hit a forehand or backhand, but telling me what's important, helping me conduct myself the right way, getting on me, and holding me to a really high standard. And that was a good Michael. I'm loving these comments.
Me too. Danny Bruce. I haven't talked to him in forever.
I'm struggling keeping a straight face during all
I
this.
know, me too.
But yeah, I wanted to get into coaching. I had the opportunity to work with the USTA, and I got to do it actually with another girl here who was doing the same program, Caroline Price or Caroline King, that you know. I don't know if you talked to her or not. She'd be awesome to.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them on next week.
Yeah, she's awesome, and it was cool going through it with her because she was more so she already knew what she was getting into with her next coaching job, but I still didn't know what direction I wanted to go, but she was great to talk to throughout the entire process because we were going through a lot of the similar decision making, and she was good. I think Caroline's awesome. really cool
Me
to hang
too.
out with.
Yeah.
And so after that, I got a chance to, one of the coaches I worked with was assistant in Michigan at the time, got connected there, got into coaching at Michigan, had an awesome time there. It was cut a little short because I had an opportunity to go to Mississippi State and be the assistant there. And I was lucky to be around some of the best people, the best like players I've ever been around, just as far as seeing what it took every day to be as successful as they were. I mean, we had 2 great years, 2 top 10 finishes. We won the SECs 2 years in a row, and I still keep in touch with those older guys all the time. And a few changes happened, and I got to go back to where I graduated at Alabama and coach there this past year. And unfortunately cut a little short, but due to some circumstances bigger than us. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what it is to me, and the reason I've been so connected to this sport is the role models, the coaches I've had, and that's a huge reason why I wanted to get into it, because growing up I thought it was the coolest job you could have. You run around on a tennis court just talking to people, going to watch guys compete, teach them to be better. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's funny that you actually get paid to do that, but it's hard to accept sometimes that it's actually a job, and I'm super thankful for that too. So that's really cool. So how early for you, this is a question I've asked, did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, when I was really young, I did play them, but they were so long ago that I can't really remember if I were any good or not. And knowing myself, probably it was the latter. I just wasn't good. But I played I played baseball. I played baseball. I played soccer, little basketball. Soccer was the last sport I gave up, because next to the park we grew up next to, I played soccer and tennis all in the same day. But right now, I mean, I dabble with a little ultimate frisbee, like Megan just asked with, but I'd give Ryler, our old assistant coach, fits with my defense.
Yeah, so, that's right.
And ping pong, of course.
Yes.
I've always taken my ping pong very seriously.
Maybe you'll become a professional ping pong player then.
One step at a time.
Yeah,
one step at a time.
That's right. So how old were you when you really started taking tennis seriously? Like you got into tournaments and everything else?
I'd say, I mean, I played a few tournaments when I was 8, 9, but when I was 10, that was really when I started being more serious. I got my first coach outside of the neighborhood, and that's when I went to Windward and started playing a few more tournaments. Got lucky because there's so many, like every weekend there's something to do in Atlanta, and I thought that was the norm. And
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, cool to hear. You definitely had a great group at Windward, and we're all still friends with most of those people. So super thankful for that. So going to talk about grit today. And what would you say? I'm going to read a definition of Angela Duckworth, who wrote a book called Grit. That's really good if you haven't read it. But what would you say your definition of grit is?
It's funny you say that. My older sister for Christmas gave me that book. The great book on Angela Duckworth, and I did read it, so it's something I've gotten more into this year is reading. But
did you know readers are leaders?
Readers are leaders, yeah. I'll try and convince other people that when I say I started reading.
Yeah.
But as far as what I think of grit, I think it's about the experiences, the challenges that you've gone through in your life, and what decisions you've made when you've encountered those moments. I think that's the biggest thing, because grit, anybody can do something really challenging, or anybody can have a great attitude, stay really positive when nothing's going wrong in their lives. But it's when something happens in your family, you're playing terrible on the court, people are losing jobs left and right here. And it's looking back on those situations, I think, and saying, okay, after this is all said and done, what did I do? How did I respond to this incident going on in my life? Did I like that? Like, am I willing to, would I be proud to talk about that with a kid I'm coaching? If not, okay, what could I do better? And then, in my opinion, when you analyze at that level, you almost start to look for challenges, because I think that's when you're really tested in life. And I think without the challenges you have to go through, whether it's family or anything in life, that's really what shapes you. And I think it gives you the best perspective on things moving forward. And I mean, everybody has their baggage. Everybody has things that are happening to them. And I know in the middle of it all, it seems like, why the heck is this happening to me? But I think if you don't go through those moments, it doesn't put things in perspective moving forward. And I think it really puts your values into place. And I think it all comes down to a choice of how you want to view it. And I think as you move along in life, you just learn to, okay, I'm not going to think about how poor me, I feel sorry for myself, but it's, okay, what do I have to do to get out of this? Is there something I can do to put myself in a better situation? And that's what I think. So
Yeah.
you have a choice of how to look at it. And I know it's cliche of me to say, but your thoughts and your mindset really control you. And I don't think gritty people wait for a situation to control their actions. They let their actions control like what they're getting out of a situation.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I think and one of the things they talk about in the book is just having a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I've heard. I don't know if that was a cough or a sneeze. God bless.
It was a cough. Sorry. Sorry.
Fine. But I think having that growth mindset, I think you're spot on about just how that begins, because everything rolls off of that. I could, have the most fantastic day, but if one bad thing happens and I let myself dwell on that, then I'm not going to get over it. So
yeah,
when you talk about grit, and you're someone who, like, I think one reason we cheered for each other so much all the time, because we weren't necessarily top of the lineup, but we fought for every point, really, really wanted our team to do the best we could. And it was a lot of hard work for us.
Yeah.
I felt like it was things maybe would have came more naturally to someone else, didn't come as quickly to me. And it's all relative, right?
Right.
You're a high school athlete and you're the best, and then you go to college and everyone's the best or better than you. But talking about grit, do you think that's something people are born with? Do you think you can develop it? I think that's always been a question for me.
I think it's something you develop. I don't think you just come out like you're a little kid 2 years old and you're just automatically gritty. I think it comes through what you've gone through in your life, what you value, and how hard you're willing to push yourself through terrible things that happen in your life. Or like, again, I think it becomes a habit. And like anything else, if you have that belief that you can get tougher, you can get grittier, you can be more resilient. And to me, grit, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm pounding my chest and I'm looking for the worst things in the world to happen to me. I mean, I think someone that's gritty can be like someone in this situation today that refuses to have a negative attitude or let these negative thoughts go in their head. I mean, I think someone that's gritty can look at positives in any situation and find a way to spend that in a good way for themselves. But I think it's developed. I don't think one thing just clicks and you can't just all of a sudden wake up one day and become gritty. I think it comes from consistently making tough decisions, no matter how small they are, over the course of your life. And I think it's foolish to think, okay, man, this is an example. Okay, I'm a teenager and I haven't really been tough. There's no chance I can get gritty. Like, no, I don't think that's a gritty decision. There's no time limit on what it takes to be tougher or to be grittier, in my opinion. And it comes down to if it's important to you, and not necessarily saying, okay, I got to go battle 5 sets in this practice and go till I cramp. It's just, okay, I can be grittier by, can I stay dialed in this entire warm up and not have Zaber yell at me for not moving my feet enough? It's starting little goals like that, I think, because those stack on each other. That's how you build confidence in yourself, and it becomes a habit to me.
Yeah, I think one of the things Angela Duckworth talks about in her definition is grit is perseverance and passion for long-term goals. And I think you can be gritty for a moment, but I think that grittiness is established over years of working towards a common goal.
Yep.
But I think some people might, be swayed more easily to be gritty than others.
Yep.
Do you think for you noticed that early on in your development as a junior that maybe you were different than other kids you trained with or competed against?
Yeah, and I was reminded of it a lot. Just but I thought it came from my coaches really early on. When I was really young, I played a few tournaments, and I think they really harped on simple things that I didn't think about as grit, but as I did them over and over, I thought it really built me. And when I look back on it, like today, I'm like, man, they were really building grit, and I thought they were just trying to help me out. It was running after every ball, like making sure I was prepared, had enough water, hydrating. It's having my head up between every point, not throwing my racket, not showing negative body language. And I was really motivated because I remember when I was 10, I got into a Southern tournament, and we had a talk after one match of my coaches talking to me about how I can, because I was youngest guy in the tournament, and how I could have more of an impact, cause more stress on guys. And a lot of it was, man, you can't be letting a ball go by without running as fast as you can on it. You have to be willing to work harder than anybody. And I remember I did it that next match, and I felt unbelievable after it. And I know a lot of people are motivated by like, oh my, if I don't work hard, I'm going to have the worst feeling in the world after the match. And maybe that's true, but I got more motivated on knowing, okay, if I do lay it out on the line, no matter what's happening, I'm going to feel incredible. And I remember that feeling afterwards. I was like, man, I want to feel like that all the time, selfishly. And yeah, I thought it became a habit. And looking back at it, yeah, simple little things I think can build grit. And it doesn't take one massive moment in your life to say, okay, now I'm gritty. Like, I don't think it stops. And you're always either getting better at it or you're getting worse at it. And it becomes a mindset of, okay, what decisions am I going to make today to be tougher? And yeah, it's just like anything else you're having to do to be more successful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about how your coaches really established grit in you and pushed you to be gritty as a junior. So, that went into college. You weren't having to develop that at 18, 19, 20, where some college players come in and they've never been in that environment before, where they've been held accountable for that. So what would you say to a junior athlete who has never been in that environment, had parents or coaches who pushed them and held them to a high standard? What kind of advice would you give them to start developing grit early on as a 12, 13, 14, high school senior before they got to college?
I think so. And it comes through overcoming little challenges every day, whether, Megan, don't make me start it. But
we're simplifying it.
Yeah, simplifying it. I think it comes down to what decisions you're making every day. Are you going to sleep in a little bit extra just because you feel like it, or are you going to wake up early because that's when you're most productive? Little things like that. Or what are you deciding to eat every morning? How early are you going to practice? Are you going there rocking up and immediately hitting balls, or you're going to get there a little early and make sure that you are dialed in and take a little time to visualize and make sure you're the most prepared you can be?
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And I think now in coaching, we look back at it and we see the little things that our coaches or our parents were telling us. I know one thing my dad, who was my coach in juniors, was, hey, you need to watch film. You need to watch film after you play if we've recorded it. And I had some fear of watching myself play. And I think that came from me seeing my flaws. Or write in your tennis journal after practice. And I don't think we, say those things now because they're important. I think we say those things now because we kind of regret not doing that in the past.
Right.
We know it would have made us better.
Yeah, I think that's great. And especially, if you have that ability to look back, like if you have any film, I think it's great because you don't have to analyze the tactics of it so much, but it's more so, okay, how did I respond when I double faulted twice in a row to start this one game? How did I respond when I got cheated? Look at my body language on it. And I think, you have to be willing to look at those and say, okay, I may not like what I see, but this is what I'm going to have to go through, and I'm going to have to analyze this to. Thanks, Hunter. Hunter is one of the guys I coached my first year at State. He is awesome. He is awesome. But I think it comes down to that. You have to be willing to be a little vulnerable if you want to improve where you really are, like where improvement really is needed.
Yeah. So we talked about juniors a little bit. now talk about kind of your time at Southern Miss in Alabama. You know,
Yep.
how do you think for you were ways that you really established grit, and maybe some areas that you now look back and say, oh, I should have done that differently?
How I established grit, well, like you said earlier, I was lucky that I had great role models as coaches, and I got to see what that was like every day, how they were gritty. And to me, it came down to how ready was I for every practice, every individual, every single time at weights. And I thought if I could show my teammates that I was giving everything I had and preparing as hard as I could for every little whatever was happening, that it would be it would be infectious, and guys would see that and it would give them confidence. Because at the end of the day, I think, or at least in college sports, in the team aspect, it's how much confidence can you bring your team. And I don't think you need to build that through just hitting a forehand really well. They need to show that I needed to show that I was invested, because I was. And I would show that by coming early to everything I had. I was really big on doing things on my own. I know we had a trainer there, Katie Wheeler and Kaylee Zavadil, who were awesome. And but I never really needed them because I took care of my body on my own. I got my exercises from them. I'd do it on my own time away because I knew they had their stuff. But I was very big in my stretching routines, preparing my body the best it could be, and making sure I was clear on what I needed. And a lot of that too came from just constantly communicating with the coaches. And it doesn't mean I have to go have a 45-minute sit down with my coaches every time I see them, but I was lucky. My coaches at Ryler and George, they always had their offices open. I could just go talk, say, hey, let's go play a game of ping pong. It's building that relationship consistently. And yeah, again, I think a lot of it is the environment you're around. And I wanted to surround myself by gritty people, and my coaches in college. And that was a big reason I went to Alabama. So I think George and Ryler were two of the toughest and grittiest guys I knew, even though I started really owning Ryler in games of 21 towards the end of my college
That's
career.
right. You're telling.
I owned him in ping pong, and I'll say that.
Oh, man.
I want to.
Well, I can say out of all my assistant coaches, I probably own Max Norris the most on the court. But Drake Bernstein, I think, definitely taught me to be gritty the most. Yeah, I think too. Yeah, George and Riley are phenomenal examples, and I think surrounding yourself with that excellent environment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think kudos to you. I mean, you came in as a junior, right, at Alabama?
Yeah, I did.
So it's tough to come in when you're already an upperclassman and establish right off the bat your teammates being able to trust you. And I know for me, I think you talk about excellence, like Marianne McFarland nowadays. She was the most toughest, strongest in the weight room, on the track, like on the court. Just so tough, and such a role model for me to, see if I could beat her in a sprint. And I think one way that your players can establish more grit is find the things that you're not good at and go find the player on your team that is the best at that and allow them to push you in it. Because it's
a visual example. A lot of people are visual learners, and I think that's a great point. And you want to learn, if you want to be better, look at someone that's better than you. And again, too, if you're invested in them and you show them, like, hey, can you help me? Like, they're more likely to come out to you, and maybe there's something you can help them out with. And at the end of the day, you're both getting better and both helping each other, I think.
Yeah. I love the fact that you say you can develop grit, because I've talked to a lot of coaches, and I think they kind of go to this default of just saying, oh, people are either born with it or they aren't. And I think that's a default of, yes, you can say that, but I think if you want to work hard enough as a coach, you're a problem solver. So no matter if you're going to, flip someone's life around completely or just help them get to the next level, I think you can teach them just to be a little bit better in that area. So now that you're in the coaching realm, how do you feel like you've done that on different teams that you've been on? And what, maybe where have you seen the most growth in a player you've worked with?
Starting out, I think that becoming gritty or making the right decisions, it starts off the court with what decisions these guys are making off the court, how they're getting ready for their tests, how they're getting ready for team meetings, what decisions are they making on the weekend, and little things like that. Because I think if we're only focusing on court things, it's not having the biggest impact we can have. And it's not going to become a habit if we say, okay, it's only important here on a tennis court. No, the reason we're harping on these values is because we know that these are what's are going to stick with you and be the biggest help to you with no matter what you do in your life after tennis. I think that's the most important thing, and it starts with little decisions that you're making off the court. Because, and a big thing I think too is, who are you surrounding yourself with when you're not around the team, or are you hanging around them too? Because, in my opinion, the people you surround yourself with, they're either building you up or they're tearing you down. And I've been lucky. I've been lucky since I was young to be around. Like, when I haven't been in tennis, I've had an unbelievable group of friends that I have through high school, and I still talk to them just about every day through our fantasy football league. And despite their concerns of how I run the league, they're always like, they're the kind of people I want to be around. They're driven, they want to be successful, and they're willing to make tough decisions every day. And I think that rubs off on you. I think the people you're around is the most important thing. And if it's important to you to be gritty, to be tough, you want to surround yourself with the toughest people. And I think I've been lucky to be around that with my friends from back in high school, and they're closer to me than anyone. And then, as far as coaching certain players, you're right. It's not a normal value in everybody, and not everybody thinks it's as important. But at least for me, it is massive for me. And whether someone likes it or not, it's going to be a value, and I'm going to harp on it every day. It's my job to communicate it in a way that each individual player understands and they can relate to. So some guys, I can just tell them, hey, you need to be tougher there. You need to run as fast as you can after every ball. Some guys will go, oh, that clicks. Other guys are going to be like, no, what the hell does that mean? And a lot of that too, again, it comes through relationship building. People are going to want to be gritty for people that care about them. And that's why I'm really big on building as big a relationship as I can with these guys, figuring out more about their upbringing, how they tackled challenges in the past, and realizing that every little thing that goes on in a day, every challenge can be built as a stepping stone to be a little tougher, to better themselves. And I think it's once you can really get them to grasp that, it's huge. But above all else, I think if I'm preaching about it, I have to be 1,000% about it. And I can't just be preaching all these tough values and everything, and then once something gets tough in my job or them seeing it and I just kind of blow it off. No, you have to be 1,000% behind what you're preaching. But I mean, for me, I'm lucky because it's been in me for a while, and it's a huge value. I take a huge value on it, so it's a little easier for me. But there are tougher times. I'm not perfect. I've gone through my fair share of stuff, but it shapes you. And it's like we said earlier, it's how you go about those challenges. It's what's going to make you better, I think, give you a better perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. And I love that you talk about you have to be 1,000% about what you're preaching, because everyone's watching. And I think that sometimes we forget that, sometimes maybe as a coach or even as a college player.
Yeah.
People, you're either influencing them positively or negatively. So
with everything you do, every action, every word, every comment, and that's something learned more and more going through coaching. But I think it's awesome because I think it's a lot of people learn the best visually, and you have to be 1,000% behind what you're preaching. And if you're off for it in a second, people aren't going to believe in you. They're not going to take as much into the words you're preaching. But if they see you're 1,000% behind it, you believe in it, I think people are more likely to follow.
Yeah, I completely agree. What would you say, if you had to sum it down to maybe 3 things, when you're coaching, or if you're seeing a player play and you're recruiting them, okay, if I'm trying to find grit in this person, these are the 3 things that are going to stand out to me that I know they have that?
I think one is, what kind of challenges have they been through in their lives? It's getting to know them and kind of what they've gone through. Because selfishly, in my job, I want to be around gritty people, like naturally, but I'm willing to develop that in kids and turn them into men with the men's side of coaching. And then two, I think it's how they conduct themselves on the court. Are they tough enough to keep their head held high, whether they win their first set or lose a first set? Are they going to look at a bad line call and use that as an excuse to kind of go off the rails? I think that's huge. So the situations they've been in, the challenges they've gone through, their body language, and I like to see how prepared they're getting, how invested they are in something, because I think you're more likely to be a little tougher, a little grittier if you really care about what you're doing. And I think that's our job as coaches, to find out what are the true values our guys or our girls really have, and getting them to realize, like, take pride in those values and say, hey, let's not just have those in the back. You have to be about those values every day. And I think that'll make it a lot easier. That makes it a lot easier for different people to really give everything they have and become the toughest they can be.
Yeah. Did you give me 2 or did you give me 3?
I gave you 3, I thought. I thought I gave you 3.
You're just giving me
tangents. I'm just talking.
It's okay. We both like to talk. We got a lot to say. And one more thing, because I think we have a question as well. Hopefully it's a good question and not like...
We're not taking any questions from Rowler to Hart. Right?
We'll take them from Megan. You've been around a lot of coaches, you've been around a lot of players, and some really successful coaches since you've been a junior and in college coaching, and maybe not even working with them as well. Who would you say is a coaching role model for you, and what advice or what things you hear in your head that they say to you while you're on the court coaching as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, like I said, I've been lucky to be around a lot of great coaches. Unbelievable. It's tough for me to kind of put my nail on the head on 1 or 2 of them. But the thing that I've gotten from the most successful coaches that I've been around is being authentic. And I feel like if I go out there and I try to be Emily Zaber, if I go and try and be one of the old coaches I worked with and preach everything, I'm not going to be successful, because, again, you're preaching to these people that are around you every day, and they're going to sense, okay, it looks like he's forcing this message a little bit. I don't know if this is really authentic. This is really what he's about, he or she is about. But the best coaches I've been around, they haven't been preaching the same values. They haven't been preaching the same tactics, but they've been 1,000% behind what they're talking about to their students. And I think that's the most important thing. I got the assistant I worked with at Michigan, the best advice probably I got was from him. I loved working for him because I could just go up to his office in between practices, hang out, just talk to him, ask questions. I still do that to this day. Maybe now more text, but he was saying the beginning, like, I was starting my coaching career, and the most important thing is, he told me, is figure out what your top 1 or 2 values are, and I think you need to stick to them. And he's like, stick to them no matter what, no matter who you're coaching, no matter what system you're in. And that has to be your constant, because that's a base for the decisions you're going to make throughout your entire life. And yeah, you can adjust them, but you need to remind yourself that those are non-negotiables that you sway on. So
yeah. So what are those 2 things?
My 2 biggest things are discipline and attitude, and you could maybe put them into one under discipline. But my thing is, the most successful people, they're making tough discipline decisions every single day. They're building themselves up, and they're not letting a situation affect their attitude. Successful people aren't waiting for good things, a situation to open up to act, okay, now I'm going to be successful, I'm going to do the right things. It's no, they're making the best decisions for themselves because they want to put themselves in the best position possible every single day. And I think you can do that through tennis, whether it's telling a guy to stay cross court and rally. That's a base from, okay, it's decision making, it's discipline, and it's being ready for practice. The reason I'm some guys would think I get a little too on them for being on time for practice or being ready to go. But my thing is, like, you go to a job interview, you're not just going to rock up a minute before, walk in the office. You're going to need to get yourself ready. You're going to need to prepare. go over questions you think you're going to be asked. But that's the cool thing about our job is we get to watch these guys fail. We get to watch these guys do things right and build them up. So that's another thing. I think the discipline and the attitude, the big part of the attitude is so many tennis players, they're all by themselves on the court growing up, and they hardly ever have anyone to talk to in their most stressful moments. And too often guys and girls, they miss a forehand and they let it deteriorate like their self-image. And it's teaching these guys in college that, man, let's not put our worth behind how you're hitting a forehand.
Yeah.
Let's put it behind what you're bringing to the table every single point. And I think the most successful people in the world, they don't let little mistakes define them. They don't let that affect their self-view or what drives them. And I think you can teach that through tennis. I think it's one of the coolest parts about our sport. And there's not one right way to do it. I've screwed up a million times trying to instill it, maybe been a little too tough on a few guys here and there in my past. But at the end of the day, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing it to learn. So
yeah, I think, man, I need to go play a match right now. I feel so motivated. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, so let's see what this question is. Oh, it's Ryler. Okay, we'll ask this. What's your favorite superhero and why?
Batman. That's not even a question.
Yes. Oh, Ryler, that's such a good question because we both love Batman.
Yeah, that was good. But Batman, I mean, he's realistic. He has grit. He's tough, and man, I think he's so calm under pressure. He thinks through his situations, and it's not about what he is underneath. He lets his actions define it. The quote goes.
That was so good. Do you remember I had that Batman lunchbox that I would?
Yeah, that was sweet. That was sweet. I love it.
Yeah, I played. For y'all who don't know, Jenny, my coach in college, gave me a Batman full school lunchbox my freshman year, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'd keep it in my bag, and every match I played, I put it under my bench, and so many coaches were like, cool.
She's going to work. Bring your lunch pail and go to work. I love it.
That was her thing. I was like, I got to set myself apart somehow from being, the loudest person on the court and a Batman lunchbox. But it's awesome. Okay. Awesome, Goody. Well, you want to leave everyone with anyone else? I thought that was fantastic. And
I appreciate it. It's nice of you to say.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, seeing you. But hopefully I'll see you soon, and I'm just really, really proud of you and what you're doing, and excited to see what happens next because you influence people in such a positive way. So I'm so glad we got to talk about that today.
That's nice of you to say. Thanks so much, Zabro. Love doing this, and any other time we want to go live, have a little extra time on my hands with all this going on, I'd love to do it.
All right, you got to interview me next, though.
I don't know if my skills are on par with yours, but tell your parents I said hello. Hope they're doing well.
I will.
And thanks for putting this together.
Absolutely. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
See you, Zabra.